Professor Marshall McLuhan. Good to see you. Do we have a microphone for Professor McLuhan? Oh, it's right over his left shoulder. You see, we don't communicate too well in the other side. Okay. We don't. Oh, there it is right there. We don't communicate too well in the communications business. Do you mind if I pin this on your tie here, Professor? Now we can hear you. Good afternoon, or good morning. That took about 7 minutes. Okay, it's nice to have you with us.
I was interested in Mr. Romer. I was born in Edmonton, so I'm there now, am I?
Oh, no, you're in, yeah, well, sort of. Yes, you're there in Edmonton right now. One of the things, you have a new book coming out of, what's your...
City as a Classroom.
City as a Classroom. And
the city really is a little red schoolhouse. I mean, the idea is in the city, everybody teaches everybody all the time. It's like being here. Learn, learn, learn.
Now, you've brought along, part of it is the functions of the human brain. Now, you have this all dealt up with the future. Now, explain this to us.
One of the little ploys I suggest might occur in the future is that you could have 2 channels on any TV set or on any kind of broadcast set. You could have 2 channels. One would be left hemisphere, one would be right hemisphere. Well, the left hemisphere of the brain gives you all that is rational, analytic, and connected, sequential. Whereas the right hemisphere gives you all the mystical, the occult, the intuitive, and so on. And so you could switch, you could have your choice of programs.
No. Let's go back a bit, because we have been using, you say, just one side of the brain, which is the left hemisphere, which is what we've been using since really the dawn of man.
Or since the, since the alphabet.
Since the alphabet.
2,500 years.
All right. But now, what has happened? Why are we going to suddenly start being able to tune into the right hemisphere?
Oh, because at electric speed, everything is simultaneous, and that pushes the right hemisphere up into dominance. The right hemisphere is the simultaneous side of the brain. The left hemisphere is the sequential, the lineal, the rational, the logical, the connected. In the right hemisphere, everything happens at once. That's music. It's acoustic. Whereas the right hemisphere is visual, connected, logical, lineal. Everything is laid out.
So up until now, then, everything has been logical, and life has been in the
hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, we have been playing the left hemisphere almost exclusively.
Now, in the future, we are going to drop all of that behind?
In the present, it's already happened.
Is it because of television?
Because, no, all electric information is simultaneous. So, in a sense, the electric age is an acoustic age.
It's just listening?
We get information from all directions at once, just like our ears. The ear picks up information from all directions at once, and that is acoustic. That is acoustic space.
What is that going to do to us in normal day-to-day living?
It's going to create a whole lot of changes. It's going to, it'll decentralize.
Decentralize what?
Us. The smallest beautiful sort of world is an electric world.
I mean, the nuclear family is
already, the extended family has already been decentralized, lopped off.
You have said that television is an undermining literacy totally. Will we become illiterate? And you corrected me on that, too.
That illiterate simply means not doing your homework in the present. But pre-literate is the third world, and post-literate is the electric world. But in the present, you can be illiterate by just being lazy. One of the effects of television is to somewhat paralyze the motor muscles of the eye. That is why it creates these reading difficulties in the young generation.
Dyslexia and things like that?
It immobilizes the motor muscles of the eyes. That's why you get sleepy on television.
Yeah, but, you mean watching television?
Yeah, the television watcher uses it for a tranquilizer.
But what do you predict then for the future, since we are stopping reading, since we're using, and it seems to me just almost like a hedonistic sort of a thing, just what we feel is what we enjoy. What do you predict for the future?
Well, as attention span gets at high speeds, attention span gets very small. And that's why we have one-liners. We don't have time to tell a joke anymore. It takes too much time. And people lose their interest in the thing long before it's finished. As attention span gets very short, then, strangely enough, as a paradox here, people become very nostalgic for the old days when. So nostalgia is really the show business today, is to a large degree nostalgia, including even the genes of the young and their beards and so on. Nostalgia for Granddad's work clothes and his beard too. And the nostalgia, the Roots program, all these programs that are slanted toward reviving the past, we can't wait for the present to pass by before we want to revive it. We have revivals of things that were here a year ago.
I can the TV records.
The instant replay is really a form of revival. Play it again, the double take. I didn't see it the first time.
Well, then with this decrease of attention span, will our philosophers die out? Will our thinkers die out?
Oh, no. What happens under those conditions is an enormous increase of dialogue. The written word may diminish its role, but dialogue and exchange, rubbing of mind against mind, that becomes very basic. The old pre-Socratic philosophers are back in the saddle today. The old pre-literate philosophers, Heraclitus, and that group are back in the saddle in philosophy today with the phenomenologists.
So in the future, then, we will become more of like the South, like Quebec, your opinions of them, sort of passing folk tales on to each other through verbal communications?
This nostalgia for the past has given not only the Quebec, but the South a huge revival. But rock and roll and jazz are also nostalgic. They're all the old tunes and old songs and the old rhythms of a life that used to be around us and so on. The French-Canadian wants to bring it back. By the way, we have a Scottish separatist movement, Welsh separatists, Irish separatists. In France, there are 4 or 5 big separatist movements inside Brittany alone. Separatism is just a way of being nostalgic about what one used to be.
Well, I guess in practical terms then, Marshall, I would just hold on to my old Life magazines and be able to sell them for a fortune in about 10 years.
The same is true of any clothing you happen to have.
And some old television programs,
That's right.
too. You might be marketable in 25 years' time as a nostalgic item.
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Professor-
Another weird thing that happens with the speed up is that we cease to be specialists, job holders, and we become role players. So that the present and the future of man is going to be devoted to role playing. Instead of just a specialist job, a repetitive job, that's left hemisphere. Whereas role playing, involvement in depth, is right hemisphere. And this is where it's at today. Women's Lib is part of this new craze for role playing.